What is up, guys? Dundick here, and now I'm back, and yes, we have an audio video for you today. It's been quite a long time, hasn't it? Probably been a couple of months now since I last done an audio video, but you know, last couple of months has been like a pretty difficult time for everyone and all that, and especially me as well. I just haven't had the time that I've usually had before, but got a couple of days off, so I thought, okay, let's test the water, let's get back into doing videos. I'm now doing WCW pay-per-view reviews, so that's really given me a reason to keep motivated to keep posting. So let's do a little audio commentary today. So I was thinking, what do I do? Then I'm thinking, well, Money in the Bank's this Sunday, then anything I can do for that. Then I got thinking, what if I do a little fantasy booking videos? This isn't really rebooking as such, but it's definitely fantasy rebooking. So, as everyone knows, Money in the Bank debuted in 2005 at WrestleMania 21, and for the last 15 years it's been this big annual thing, one of the biggest things WWE does all year, and of course they're going to do it again this Sunday. So I got thinking, what if Money in the Bank existed before 2005? How might that look like? And I got thinking, yeah, I want to do it. And yes, before we start, this is a video that Jerichoholic8704 did a while ago, maybe a year or two ago. So if anyone's listening to this and wondering, did you just steal Jerichoholic's idea? Yes, I did. So if you listen to this, Jerichoholic, I stole your idea, sorry. Although I will preface it that by saying, because yesterday when I was preparing this video, I did rewatch that video, and he did say on that video this was something that Diesel 101 Raw suggested to him. So I suppose you can give partial credit to him as well. And I don't know, maybe this is a request he did to me a while ago and I've just plain forgot about it. I don't know. But what I'm going to do here is expand on that. So when Jerichoholic did it, he just merely picked the Money in the Bank winner every year. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to book the entire Money in the Bank ladder match. I'm going to say all the participants of the match, who's going to win. And sometimes when I can, maybe come up with a way for him to cash in the Money in the Bank and that sort of thing. And although on his video, he did it from 1994 to 2004, sorry, but I'm going to extend it to 1992 to 2004. Why 1992? That was the year I started watching wrestling, so that just makes sense really. So we've got 12 years worth of Money in the Banks to get through here, so let's just get to them. So obviously we're going to kick off way back in 1992, the year I started watching wrestling, of course, which most people know, and where this Money in the Bank is going to start. So as a general rule, Money in the Bank is going to take place around the same time Money in the Bank in real life takes place now. So, it started out in July, the first few, and then it got moved to June, and now it's happening in May. So we're going to go for a rough timeline of June to early July, with one exception which I'll get into. And I've gone, they're not all going to have the same amount of people in here. We're going to have because depending on the talent roster, really, we're going to have a maximum of 8 and a minimum of 6. So there you go. So 1992, who would be in the very first Money in the Bank ladder match? Well, I've gone for the Intercontinental Champion, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, Rick the Model Martel, Ric Flair, Tatanka, the British Bulldog, the Mountie, and El Matador, Tito Santana. Feel like with the 1992 roster, that's a pretty good lineup. Obviously, you had Savage and Warrior were the two top baby faces at the time. They don't really need to be in it. Undertaker was more like an attraction for 1992. He didn't really need to be in a Money in the Bank ladder match. I don't think that would really make sense. Then you've got these over-the-top character heels such as Papa Shango, the Berserker, people like that who don't really need to be in there. So in the ring, I kind of feel like these guys all make sense. You've got your Stars of the Future and Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, Solid Guy and the British Bulldog, a couple of really good veterans in there like Rick Martel and El Matador. The Mountie was a good character, and then Ric Flair, the big star in this match, the top heel in the company. And who would I have win? Now a lot of people look at this and think, would I say Bret Hart? Because I think that's probably what people assume I'm going to say, but I'm going to say no actually, and because for the vast majority of the time, the heel wins the Money in the Bank, and that just works best for me, you know, because cashing in on a babyface and all that's really a heelish thing to do. So if you've probably noticed over the years, most of the time a heel wins the Money in the Bank, and that just makes sense. Or sometimes if a babyface does win Money in the Bank, he uses that to turn himself heel. 2 examples: CM Punk in 2009, Daniel Bryan in 2011. There's probably other examples I just can't think of off the top of my head right now. So my winner of the very first Money in the Bank ladder match in 1992 is Ric Flair. So that could be an interesting one. So question: why would I use Money in the Bank ladder match to give it to someone who's already on top instead of elevating a new guy? Well, interesting you asked that, and it all really ties into the cash-in, really, what makes the most sense. So number one, you give it to Ric Flair to give the Money in the Bank a big boost off the right off the bat, having a major star win it. But there's a very perfect opportunity for Ric Flair to cash in Money in the Bank. And when would he do this? Right at SummerSlam 1992, because if you remember, Ric Flair didn't even wrestle on that show. It was Savage versus Warrior for the title. Then Ric Flair and Mr. Perfect ruined that match, causing a double DQ. And then when they came back to the States, Ric Flair then won the title from Savage. So in my scenario, you can do everything the same. The whole build-up to SummerSlam 1992 exactly the same. Although this time, Ric Flair and Mr. Perfect ruin the match, and when Randy Savage is down, Ric Flair cashes in the Money in the Bank ladder match contract to become the World Wrestling Federation champion at SummerSlam 1992. I think that's pretty good, you know. So then what? 1993, the following year, we're going to have the following: Mr. Perfect, Shawn Michaels, Crush, Tatanka, Marty Jannetty, Doink the Clown, Razor Ramon, and Bam Bam Bigelow. I feel like with the 1993 roster, I've done a pretty good job there. I mean, Perfect, Michaels, Ramon, all obvious choices, right, you'd think. Then obviously Tatanka was one of the most over faces at the time on the mid-card level. Crush, although he was a bigger guy, I think he had enough agility they could make it work and be a good power guy for the Money in the Bank ladder match. You might think Marty Jannetty and think, oh, was Marty Jannetty there? Yeah, this was in the middle of Marty Jannetty's maybe 3rd or 4th time he'd been fired. I don't even know at this point. But this was, of course, a period where he was even the Intercontinental Champion for a brief period, if you remember, when he came back on that Raw and Main, won the Intercontinental title from Shawn Michaels on the same night, 1-2-3 kid, upset Razor Ramon. And this time, Jannetty lasted all the way up to early 1994 when he got fired again. Then you look at Bam Bam Bigelow, a near 400-pound guy. Yep, near 400-pound guy for sure, but one of the most agile big men in the history of the business, so I think he'd do a good job here. And then Doink the Clown. I mean, remember this was summer of 1993, so this was the original Doink the Clown, when Doink the Clown was actually fucking awesome, not the stupid Doink and Dink and Pink and Wink Doink from 1994 and 85. This was a Matt Bourne Doink the Clown, when Doink the Clown was actually an awesome character. So with those guys in there, I do feel like this was probably the hardest one to pick, because there's not really an obvious winner. And this is one where I can't really think of when and how he would cash in Money in the Bank. I just had to pick a winner for this one. And the one I've gone for is Mr. Perfect. I think that might work to have Mr. Perfect win the Money in the Bank for this one, because he's absolutely perfect. I mean, Shawn Michaels was still a couple of years away from being a top guy. I think you could have went for Razor maybe, but I feel like Razor did such a good job as the Intercontinental Champion. He doesn't really need to be in the title scene. So yeah, I've gone for Mr. Perfect for that one. Then we skip ahead to 1994. This time I've gone over 6-man Money in the Bank ladder match, because 94, 95, the roster was kind of getting depleted a little bit, and roster's certainly not as hot as it had been in the past. So guys, I've gone for Razor Ramon, Bam Bam Bigelow again. Then I've gone with Owen Hart, Tatanka, Jeff Jarrett, and the 1-2-3 kid. So 6 guys there, but I feel they all work. So obviously Bam Bam and Razor and Tatanka are all in there again. And then this time you got the 1-2-3 kid, which you called 1994. He'd have been perfect for a Money in the Bank ladder match, being the smallest guy in the roster and his high flying style and all that. Jeff Jarrett, think he would work, but obviously this year you get Owen Hart in there because 1994 was Owen Hart's best year. The year he turned heel, the year he beat Bret at WrestleMania, the year he won the King of the Ring, had the big cage match with Bret at SummerSlam. And for this one, Owen Hart was the 1994 King of the Ring, but he's also, in my bookings, going to be the 1994 Money in the Bank ladder match winner. I think he makes the most sense by far out of these lot. Because people like Jarrett and Kidd weren't really top guys. Razor didn't really need it, so... And of course, Owen Hart was feuding with Bret Hart at the time. And that just wouldn't have been so perfect, wouldn't it, for the heel Owen Hart to try and get one up on his brother and screw him out the WWF Championship. So what you could have done the cage match exactly the same way. And then you could have had Bret beat Backlund at the Survivor Series. And then afterwards, Owen Hart could have cashed in the Money in the Bank because he did all this thing, the whole thing of getting Bob Backlund to try and beat him failed. So Owen Hart was going to fuck over his brother Bret, beat him down, cash in the Money in the Bank and steal Bret's WWF title. Because if there was ever a time for Owen to be the WWF champion, if there ever was one, 1994 was the only real year you could really see it happening, the only year that really made sense. So maybe then Owen could have held the title from Survivor Series to Royal Rumble, maybe, where Diesel can beat Owen for the title, and then Diesel can have his title reign just like he did in real life. So yeah. And then that leads us to 1995. Not a great roster at all, but I feel like I've done a pretty good job with this one. So you've got Razor Ramon again, Shawn Michaels, last year's winner Owen Hart, the British Bulldog, Lex Luger, Jeff Jarrett, the 1-2-3 Kid, and Hakushi. I mean, Hakushi would have been perfect for this match. Hakushi, I think he was Jinsuke Shinsaki or something, Japanese wrestler in the WWF for a period, for about a year maybe. Had a few highlights, but ultimately didn't really truly get over. I mean, had a good opening match with 1-2-3 Kid at SummerSlam, had a great match with Bret Hart at the first In Your House. So overall, good lineup. I mean, you've got stars, so Shawn Michaels is back in the Money in the Bank ladder match now. This time as a big baby face after turning face with Diesel. Last year's winner British Bulldogs back in the WWF. Brought Lex Luger in this one because in 1994 he'd been a big star, but by 1995 his star had kind of fallen a little bit. He wasn't the main eventer anymore, but you could have put him in the Money in the Bank and it could have really worked. Now for this one, I think everyone's going to say Shawn Michaels, and I'm going to slightly disagree with that one because I feel like the way Shawn Michaels won the WWF title in real life, getting down the concussion syndrome, coming back for the Royal Rumble, the whole boyhood dream for WrestleMania 12 was just perfect. So I would not change that, and I wouldn't compromise that by giving him the Money in the Bank. I would have just kept it off him. So for my Money in the Bank, we're going to have a heel turn here. It's going to come down to the British Bulldog and Lex Luger, and then Davey Boy's going to screw Lex Luger out the Money in the Bank. He's going to have Jim Cornette run the ring to push Lex Luger off the ladder. Then Bulldog's going to steal the Money in the Bank from Lex Luger. Then he's going to turn heel. Then later on in the year, you can cash in maybe around October, Survivor Series time, or maybe even September. Cash in on Diesel to become the WWF champion. Because again, like Owen Hart, there's always been that big burner question. If Davey Boy Smith was ever going to be the World Wrestling Federation champion, when was the best time? And I'd probably say 1995 when he turned heel and cut his hair and got a little bit of a main event push. I mean, 1996, that was all about Shawn Michaels, and if anyone should have beat Shawn for the title that year, it should have been Vader or Sid. So what if Davey had ended Diesel's reign and then had a brief run as champion, and then he could have lost it to Bret? Then Bret could have had that 95-96 reign and then pass it on to Shawn at WrestleMania 12, and there you go. So yeah, let's keep going. Then 1996, the following year, we have the following participants: Stone Cold Steve Austin, Vader, Owen Hart, Ahmed Johnson, Goldust, Wildman Mark Mero, Savio Vega, and a young man by the name of Hunter Hearst Helmsley. So some future legends are there for sure. I mean, Stone Cold Steve Austin and Triple H, there you go. Goldust, who was a really over character at the time. Then you got good mid-card players now, like Wildman Mark Mero, Savio Vega. Ahmed Johnson probably would have done a good job as a power guy in the match. And then you got the £400 Vader. Now, obviously on paper, Vader in a ladder match seems kind of weird, but in previous Money in the Banks, we've seen big guys in Money in the Banks before me. Kane's been in his fair share. Even the Big Show's been in a couple. And if you remember when the Big Show was in it, he had this awesome idea. He had this super strong big ladder, if you remember it. It was like this absolutely massive wide ladder that he used. Now, even Mark Henry was in a Money in the Bank ladder match, wasn't he? Yeah, I'm sure he was. So if they're in, Vader could certainly do that, and you could even have Vader have the super reinforced ladder if you want to. And as far as a winner, I think most people are going to say Stone Cold, and yeah, I get that. That would actually make a lot of sense. But I'm going to say no, because like Shawn Michaels, I think it was perfect how Austin eventually won the title. And I don't think Austin could win the Money in the Bank and lose the cash in, because that would hurt his character. So I'd keep everything the Dude Ref did with Stone Cold exactly the same, because I think the whole going to WrestleMania 14, 98, he was well and truly ready to become the champion then. So who would I go for? And I would go for Vader. I feel like Vader's probably the best choice out of these to win the Money in the Bank ladder match. And I would have him cash in on Shawn Michaels. Maybe later, maybe it's Survivor Series or something. Maybe him and Sid could have had the match, and then Vader could have cashed in the Money in the Bank and beat Shawn Michaels, and then held on the title from beating Bret in Your House this time, then losing the title to Shawn Michaels at Royal Rumble 1997. So I think that would work. And then let's go to 1997. We're going to keep going with this one. We're going pretty good. So for this one, we've got Mankind, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, Ken Shamrock, Goldust, Farouk, the British Bulldog, Owen Hart, and Flash Funk. So you've got Owen and the British Bulldog as two Hart Foundation representatives in there, so you could build a story around that. Then you got the young rookie Ken Shamrock, Farouk, the leader of the Nation of Domination, Triple H and Mankind, who were having a big feud at the time. And I basically put Flash Funk in there because he was a good high flyer and it would work. Because Flash Funk, I would have had Rocky Maivia in there, but I remember this was the time that Rocky Maivia was out injured. He didn't come back till August when he turned heel to join the Nation of Domination. So because of Rocky being injured, I've not put him in there. And I think Arm Edge was feuding for The Undertaker at the time as well, so I haven't put him in there either. Then I think, obviously, Shawn Michaels at this point was too big for Money in the Bank. Ditto Bret Hart, and I feel like Stone Cold was blown up as well, so Austin was then at the point in his career where he didn't really need to be in a Money in the Bank ladder match, so this is a lineup I've gone with. And who have I gone to win this Money in the Bank? Now this is a tough one. I could have went to one of the Hart Foundation members again, and had it in, so that could have been interesting with Bret being the champion, but either Owen or Davey having the Money in the Bank ladder match. But I've gone for Ken Shamrock for this one. I feel like Shamrock would because Shamrock came in for a lot of hype and all that, and I just feel this would work. And if you think about it, if there was a Money in the Bank in 1997, maybe that would have been a good way around the Montreal screw job. So if Bret wasn't willing to do the job for Shawn, maybe Shamrock could have cashed in him at either Survivor Series or the very next night on Raw, challenged him, or maybe the opening of Raw could have challenged him to a match right there and then have Shamrock beat Bret Hart clean with the ankle lock. Bret Hart submits, Shamrock becomes the WWF champion, and then Shamrock can have a transitional reign where the belt's passed back to Shawn Michaels, and then you go for Shawn and Austin from there. And then that leads us to 1998. Now we're in the Attitude Era, so we got The Rock, Triple H, Owen Hart, D'Lo Brown, Marvelous Mark Mero, Goldust, X-Pac, and Terry Funk. So the question is, why the hell would you have a 50-odd-year-old Terry Funk in a ladder match? Well, my question is, why wouldn't you have a 50-odd-year-old Terry Funk in a ladder match, silly? I mean, not in all seriousness, no. I just thought that'd be a really cool one to put. So you got this living legend in Terry Funk. He's in his 50s now. Now he has one last chance to get a Money in the Bank briefcase and possibly become the world champion. And of course, Terry Funk, no normal 50-odd-year-old guy, was he? I mean, this was hardcore Terry Funk, who was doing all the hardcore stuff in Japan and ECW. Hell, even in 1998, some of the stuff Terry Funk was doing back then, And look at how he's like 55, 56. It's just crazy. Absolutely crazy. If you remember that match he had with Mick Foley on Raw in May of 1998, crazy stuff. Then so obviously now The Rock's in this Money in the Bank ladder match because he's blown up. Triple H by 98, a much bigger star than he was in 1997. You got the veteran Owen Hart. X-Pac's back in the WWF after a few years away. Then you got a young guy like D'Lo Brown that could really benefit by being in this one. Then you got veterans in Goldust and Mero, which could kind of make it work. And for me, the winner for this got to be The Rock for this one, hasn't it really? I mean, most people, and I agree, think The Rock should have won the 1998 King of the Ring, and I agree with that. And we're going to go with that here. We're going to have The Rock win the Money in the Bank ladder match. He was the up-and-coming heel later in the Age Domination. Of course, later in 1998, popularity just exploded and kind of became a big deal. Wonder whatever happened to that Dwayne Johnson fella. Hope he's doing alright with himself these days. But yeah, obviously The Rock can win, and then obviously, you know, some point, maybe even a breakdown, or maybe wait till the Survive, cash in on Stone Cold and become the corporate champion that way. But either way, it's all good. Then 1999, this was a hard one to book because there wasn't really anyone obvious. And looking back at the 1999 roster as far as in-ring talent, just wasn't that great. Entertaining characters for sure, but nothing really special. So I want to go with Triple H, Kane, Ken Shamrock, X-Pac, Billy Gunn, Road Dogg, Val Venus and D'Lo Brown. So a good enough roster there, really. So you got all four former DX members in there. So Road Dogg and X-Pac, who are still carrying the DX banner. Triple H and Mr. Ass, who had left DX earlier in that year. Then obviously you got Kane in there, which Kane's been in a few Money in the Banks in real life, so why would he be in this one? Former winner Ken Shamrock. Then you got D'Lo, then Val Venus making his Money in the Bank debut. Now, this was hard. I thought about Kane going for it. Thought that could have worked, and then I thought, well, you know, Triple H was about to become the top heel in the company. He was going to be the WWF champion in about a month or two anyway, so I feel like, yeah, give him the Money in the Bank ladder match. Have him cash in on Stone Cold and then have him become the WWF champion that way. Or if Austin was just not going to do the job, he could still do the SummerSlam thing, exactly the same with Mankind, win the title. Then next night on Raw, Triple H can destroy Mankind and cash in the Money in the Bank to become the new WWF champion, because he did become the WWF champion in August anyway, so, you know, just feel like that would be the best choice for this one, really. And then 2000, now this one could be interesting. You got Chris Jericho, Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, Kurt Angle, Rikishi, Taz, Val Venus and Perry Saturn. So a few new faces in this, the most notably Kurt Angle, Chris Jericho, Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, four of the best workers of the 2000s for sure. Then you got Taz in there. Now Rikishi, again, another big guy in this one, but if you remember in 2000, Rikishi was so over as a babyface. He really was. I mean, apart from like maybe The Rock and Jericho and Undertaker and Kane maybe, Rikishi was right up there with over baby faces. Then you got put Perry Saturn there, because why not? Good enough worker. Val Venus, this was the time when Val Venus was getting managed by Trish Stratus and having that, do you remember that weird techno music he had that was on SmackDown 2 Your Roll? Remember that one, old time fans? This is when Val and Rikishi having the feud over the Intercontinental title. And then for this one, obviously, yeah, I've got to go with Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle won the King of the Ring 2000. So I want to go for him to win this Money in the Bank. I feel like with all the accolades Angle won that year, the European, the Intercontinental title, King of the Ring, World Wrestling Federation title, all outside of his rookie year. Just to make that even a little bit more better, winning the Money in the Bank would be great. And then maybe he can use that to win the title later in the year against The Rock, because Kurt Angle did beat The Rock at No Mercy 2000 to win the world title. So maybe he could use Money in the Bank for that one, for Angle to win his first world title. I think out of all the ladder matches I've booked, this one is potentially the best one. Although looking further down, maybe another one actually, which I'll get into in a sec. Now, 2001, I've done a slightly different stance on this one. So the other ones are going to be June or July, but I'm putting this one in May, right before the invasion, because I feel like just doing it before the invasion and not having Alliance guys in there, I just feel like would make a little bit more sense. So I've gone with Chris Benoit, Chris Jericho, William Regal, Test, Raven, Rhino, Edge and Jeff Hardy. So remember, this is at the time where WWF was already flirting with the idea of splitting the Hardy's and Edge and Christian up. I mean, Hardy Boys were still together, but they were definitely flirting with singles runs, especially Jeff. Jeff had already been the Intercontinental Champion at this point. Then I think he'd go on to be the hardcore and light heavyweight champion that year. Matt was the European champion. Edge and Christian were starting to do more singles things, so I've took who were probably the biggest stars of each team, that's Edge and Jeff Hardy, put them in this match. I think William Regal might be an interesting one for a ladder match, a more technical wrestler. Could that work? Then you got a big guy in Test, and you got an ECW hardcore guy in Rhino. That would be interesting. Raven as well, put him in there because I feel like that would work. And then for this one, going to have Chris Jericho win the Money in the Bank ladder match. One of the few things in his entire career Jericho's never done. He's never won the Money in the Bank, and he's never won a Royal Rumble. Well, for me, he should have won the Royal Rumble in 2012. And if you're going to do a Money in the Bank ladder match, he could win it here because 2001 was probably Jericho's big year. I mean, he had a big year in 2000, but of course in 2001 became a main eventer. And I don't know if you ever heard about this. He might have mentioned it once or twice in his career. Chris Jericho was the very first Undisputed Champion, you know. And you know what he did? He beat The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin in the same night. Have you ever heard about that before? Big news, I know. So yeah, Jericho can win this, and then maybe he can do the thing with The Rock for the WCW title, and then maybe when The Rock wins the WCW title back, he can screw The Rock with the Money in the Bank and steal the WCW title back, and then we can get to the vengeance thing like it did in real life, and then he can go on to become the Undisputed Champion. But you know, then 2002 to 2004, now we're going to have a slightly different stance on these things, because this is a brand split year. So what we're going to do, we're going to have interpromotional matches. So we're going to have 4 Raw superstars and 4 SmackDown superstars. Now, not going to lie, I just couldn't be bothered to book 2 separate ladder matches each year. I mean, I was thinking about doing a Raw Money in the Bank and a SmackDown Money in the Bank, but I'm not going to lie, I just couldn't be bothered. Couldn't be bothered to come up with 2 separate Money in the Banks and 2 separate scenarios. So what I've done is done basically kind of what some of the WrestleMania Money in the Banks were like. So WrestleMania 21 was an all-Raw one, but for WrestleMania 22 to 25, there was inter-brand matches. First Raw and SmackDown, and then Raw, SmackDown, and ECW for the rest of them. And the ones nowadays are inter-brand as well. Let's think of the original brands. Yeah, so the first one was all SmackDown, wasn't it? Then when they ended, yeah, so from 18, 19 and this year, they were all Raw and SmackDown Money in the Bank ladder matches. So anyway, so 2002. So we're going to do this right before, we'll do this at Vengeance. So right when Eric Bischoff and Stephanie McMahon became the general manager, and right before that, do you remember that little period from like July, August, September where the rosters were open and guys are jumping back and forth? So it wasn't really a draft as such, but they definitely rejigged the rosters and had guys jumping back and forth. So for example, Chris Jericho, the Un-Americans, went to Raw, Brock Lesnar went to SmackDown, Benoit and Guerrero went to SmackDown. There's quite a few examples. So we're going to do the July time period. So representing Raw, Rob Van Dam, Booker T, Bubba Ray Dudley, Jeff Hardy. And then representing SmackDown, we've got Edge, Chris Jericho, Christian and Randy Orton. So for the purpose, I thought, you know, obviously the TLC guys had all pretty much split off into singles runs by this point, so having Bubba Ray and Jeff Hardy for the Raw side makes a lot of sense. Reverend Devon, I don't know, I just don't think that character really made sense to be in a Money in the Bank ladder match. I think at the time Matt Hardy wasn't really in a position that would have made sense to put him in there, because you've got Edge and Christian as singles guys. You've got the last year's winner Chris Jericho. Then the Raw side, you've got RVD and Booker T making the Money in the Bank debuts. And then Randy Orton kind of the wild card in there. Randy Orton was the rookie at the time, hadn't truly found his foot, so I thought, yeah, let's just put him in there for the crack. Now this one, obviously, I think will be a really good one in real life, because he's got some really good performers in there. Now, who's going to win? Now, this was a hard one. Thought about Booker T, and I thought, nah, maybe not. Then I thought maybe going with Edge, but then if you remember, Edge got injured in 2003, so that would have kind of fucked things up, wouldn't it? And I just don't think he was ready to be a top guy in 2002. I feel like he was getting there, but I think he needed to develop that rated R superstar character and then obviously become the world champion like he did in 2006. So for this one, I've gone for Rob Van Dam. And yes, I know in real life Rob Van Dam won the Money in the Bank in 2006, but who the hell cares? This is a fantasy booking. We don't need to take this too seriously. Then we'll have RVD go over, because RVD in 01, 02 just so over as a babyface. I mean, he really was. And just this day, I feel like such a missed opportunity. Don't get me wrong, RVD was a big star in WWE, absolutely was, but especially looking back in hindsight now, all these years later, just feel like he should have been so much bigger than he was. I mean, if RVD came along now, like in this era, he'd easily be the most popular guy, and he could easily be a top guy now, but then it just didn't happen. So what you can do, you could even do RVD, do the honourable babyface cash-in, because he did this in real life. So with Triple H and Scott Steiner feud, kind of wait, not kind of, it did absolutely flop. And then, let's be honest, I think we could all do without that Triple H and Booker T feud for WrestleMania 19, couldn't we? So what if sometime after No Way Out, Rob Van Dam declared he's going to cash in his Money in the Bank at WrestleMania 19, and he's going to challenge Triple H for the World Heavyweight title, and then you build up the match. And then, this is fantasy booking, by the way, so in no way do I think in real life Triple H would ever go for this. I mean, if it is in real life, it's obvious Triple H would win, but in my fantasy booking, RVD is going to overcome the odds, beat Triple H to win the World Heavyweight title in WrestleMania 19. I just feel like it'd be so cool. Then we're going to move on to 2003. Then we're going to have representing Raw, Chris Jericho, Rob Van Dam, Booker T, Randy Orton. Then the four SmackDown guys are Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, John Cena, Rey Mysterio. Actually, now I think about it, looking at these, I would say as far as the Money in the Bank ladder match, this would have to be the best one, surely, wouldn't it? I mean, on paper. So you've got obviously Benoit, Jericho, Guerrero, three of the absolute best wrestlers in the world. Rey Mysterio, perfect for Money in the Bank ladder match. Edge of all that money, not Edge, sorry, Booker T, RVD, the last year's winner. Then you got two guys who would ultimately go on to be a future WWE, really, when you think about it. Randy Orton and John Cena, because at the time, you could tell Cena was just rising so hard on SmackDown with the Doctor of Thugonomics. And Randy Orton had been in Evolution for a little while, and you could just see, yeah, it was going that way. Because I think at this time, Randy Orton had just started the Legend Killer thing. I might be timelining off slightly, but it is around this time period, so I think on paper, I think this Money in the Bank would probably be the best one out of all the ones I've booked, surely. I mean, that's up for you guys to decide, of course. And then this one, I'm more of Eddie Guerrero. I think Eddie Guerrero would have been perfect for the Money in the Bank. And actually, yeah, I think for Eddie Guerrero's character, having the Money in the Bank would be absolutely perfect for him, wouldn't it? I feel like he would be the absolute perfect guy to hold the Money in the Bank briefcase at some point, because he could do so many creative things with it, within lying, cheating and stealing. And he's one of those ones where it's a babyface cashing in, and yeah, that would probably get him some heat, but for Eddie Guerrero it would work so well, because Eddie Guerrero lies, he cheats, he steals, and the fans love him for that. So I just feel like there could be many creative ways for Eddie Guerrero to cash in. I mean, when could he do it? I guess he could have done it in early 2004 over Brock Lesnar, maybe. But admittedly, that would take away the specialness of when he did beat Brock Lesnar. But this is only fantasy bookers, so it doesn't really make... It's not that big a deal. But I'll go for Eddie Guerrero to win the Money in the Bank. And then finally, 2004, the year before Money in the Bank became a thing in real life. So this is another good one though, but not quite as good as some of the others. Representing Raw, Randy Orton, Chris Jericho, Edge, Shelton Benjamin. Then representing SmackDown, John Cena, Rob Van Dam, Rey Mysterio and Rene Dupree. Now Rene Dupree might seem like an odd one, but if you remember, Rene Dupree was a highly thought of a rookie at the time, 20 years old, had a feud with John Cena over the US title, if you remember that. And it kind of looked like they were going to do something, but it never really happened. Now obviously the Raw side, this writes itself really. Orton, Jericho, Edge, they all make complete sense. And then Shelton Benjamin, of course, especially in the WrestleMania Money in the Bank ladder matches, Shelton Benjamin was a part of so many of them, and often the highlight of those matches. And of course SmackDown, Cena has to be there because 2004 was the year that they were building Cena as a top guy, which he didn't become a top guy until 2005. And RVD, Mysterio, both obvious choices for this one really. And then who would win this one? I feel the obvious choice for this one's Randy Orton, absolutely. I feel like he would have been. But 2004 was the year that Randy Orton got pushed to the moon. Now, of course, Orton became the youngest world heavyweight champion that year. And then for various reasons, that just did not work out as a babyface and all that, which we don't need to get into now. But I think, yeah, this would have been perfect for him. Maybe if WWE hadn't have fucked up the Triple H Orton feud, we could have waited until 2005. Then they could have finally done the thing where Randy Orton pounces and finally screws Triple H out of the world title. Then Orton become the world champion. Then it could have been Orton and Triple H at WrestleMania 21 instead of Batista. But there you go. So that's a wrap, guys. That's my rebooking of all the Money in the Banks from 1992 to 2004 out the way. I kind of enjoyed this one. I thought this was kind of an interesting video to do. So thank you guys for watching, and until next time, peace.